Hey, Blaze Tracy here. Before I get into my version of the Dorado cartridge belt, I wanted to take a look at a few screenshots. The first is from Rio Bravo, and this is John Wayne's standard suede type cartridge belt he wore in the 1950s and 60s. And here's one of the exceptions, is Dorado, and here's John Wayne with Robert Mitchum. And you get a pretty good overall view of the Dorado cartridge belt. And you can kind of compare it to Robert Mitchum wearing the more standard fast draw type belt from the 1950s and 60s. As far as I can tell, Wayne's belt from Dorado was neither tooled nor lined. And here's a zoom. A little fuzzy, but we can make out some interesting features. Underneath the vest, you can see on the left the adjustment holes for the tied-on billet. And on the right, cartridge loops. And this belt looks a little narrower than most belts, maybe 2 1/4 inches, I would guess. For my version of the cartridge belt, I used a piece of strap leather from Tandy that was 2 inches wide, 50 inches long. And you can see here it's dyed in saddle tan. The back is also saddle tan, came out kind of a brown, and finished in acrylic. Now, I got this piece of leather off of Amazon on sale for $10. I think the normal price is about $17. Still a pretty good price. Seems like a pretty good piece of leather. Tandy makes these produces these in a variety of widths, but 2 inches seemed to work well for me since my primary centerfire cartridge is the 38 long Colt. It seemed like a good width. Now let's zoom down here to the buckle, and we've got Lonesome Dove meets Dorado. Adjust the camera here a little bit. There we go. Now, I did not have a clip corner buckle like on John Wayne's, but I did have this buckle that I bought a while back from an outfit called Paisley Brass in Virginia. So I thought I'd give it a try. It's a nice buckle. I think I paid about $29 for it. Now, the end of this piece of leather had a hole punched in it. I don't know why. And of course it was squared off, so I kind of rounded it, smoothed it off with some fine grit sandpaper. Now we get to this piece here. This came out of a farmer's bundle that they sell at Hobby Lobby. And those farmer's bundles are cheap. They're big packs of remnant leather, I guess, from the leather products and the kits they sell. And there was a large piece of leather along with a lot of leather lace in the bundle for $4, so I bought it. Came in handy. That's where this piece came from. Decent piece of leather. It was unfinished, but it was a little darker, so the saddle tan came out darker. I cut this notch for the prong that's on clip corner buckles and other belt buckles. Easiest way to punch or cut this out is to punch a hole on each end and then just cut the rectangle out with an X-Acto knife or a pair of scissors. Just be careful. So if I decide to change this out, I can put a more conventional belt buckle on there. And of course this end is rounded. I should have taken the time here to finish this off. Funny what you can see under HD. This was hand punched and then hand sewn with that brown wax thread. Now the keeper here, this was made from a leftover piece of leather from the bolt-on cartridge loops. Talk about that in a minute. See, it's sewn in the back. And also dyed in saddle tan with an acrylic coat. Now, bolt-on cartridge loops. I have a separate video on my channel on how to make these. They're simple to make. You can make them, of course, separately at the kitchen table, sew them together while you're watching television or whatnot. And they have the added bonus that since they have a piece of leather underneath, they kind of sit up from the belt. If that camera will snap into focus or not, but I think you can still tell. So you slide the cartridges in and out. Less chance of them scratching up the leather. Not that this is a fancy schmancy belt, but they work. Again, these are 38 long Colt, 38 special are a little bit longer. Not too much longer. 357, they may go down to the end of the belt, but I'm sure it would be fine with 357s. Now, these brass Chicago screws, I already had a lot of brass going on, so I figured I'd use these. But it struck me after I put these on. You see the stitching on the end. Now, instead of using Chicago screws, punching the hole and putting the Chicago screw in there, it would have been fairly easy to maybe round these corners off just a little bit, punch 4 holes, and stitch this straight to the belt. Give it maybe a little more finished look if you don't like the Chicago screws. Also, you can find these in like a silver chrome, and I've seen them for sale online blackened, kind of a smoky blackened color. So there's some options out there if you have a darker belt and you want to use the Chicago screws. So I have 2 sets of these up front, sort of give the same look as John Wayne's belt. You know, you got those immediately go into the cartridge loops. Of course, his didn't have the Chicago screws, but you know, it's not an exact copy. And we go along some more in the belt, and then just behind where the holster would sit, about the 4 o'clock position, and I have some marks here where the holster would sit if you wear it like John Wayne wore it, I put a 3rd set. So this belt, as it is, will hold 15 cartridges, and they're in places that are easy to reach. There's none so far back that you can't get them out. And moving right along, we get to the most interesting part of the belt, and that's the tied-on billet. Now, you watch a lot of the B-Westerns, you'll see conventional gun belts with tied-on billets, but I don't think I've seen any of these like this. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I've watched more than my share of Westerns. And so you can see how this is tied on. Now, originally this was all one piece, and I sort of cut this down from 2 inches. I did cut it down from 2 inches to 1.5 inches here. And I was tempted to leave it attached, but I thought, no, it's not what the project is. So I cut the thing off, rounded it off, did a little light sandpaper on here, put some finish over that where I'd cut it. And then this leather lace, this came in the farmer's bundles I mentioned earlier. It's pretty thick. I punched the smallest possible holes that I could get the leather lace through. I took a long piece of it, cut the ends to a point, stuck it down in here, and you can see it comes out, crosses, comes back up here, goes down in here, and then it's tied in a square knot here. Now this, it's a pretty big size knot, but if you wear this belt in the same position John Wayne wore his, and you have a little extra in the middle, like a lot of us do, you probably won't notice it. You maybe pound this down a little bit with a mallet. I've worn this several times, and this has not come loose. So there you have that. Again, probably one of the most interesting features of the belt. Now, one thing you'll notice is there are no extra adjustment holes here. I didn't think they would look right, especially in this color. Also, at some point in the future, I may decide to stick an extra row of cartridge loops on here. So there's behind and in front of the holster on the right side. So now we come up to the end of the belt. And kind of shaped it, finished it with a light grit sandpaper. Not too shabby. So there you have it. If you have any comments, suggestions, put them in the comments block, and stay safe.